Top of the morning to everybody. Top of the morning to you, James. Good to see you. I am very excited today. I'll give a little hint as to this episode and soon to be series. When somebody 20 years ago would have said to me, culture in the workplace, I would have said, culture? Who's bringing in yogurt? You get it? Yogurt culture? Come on.
I get it. I don't have to like it, but I get it.
Do you like any of my
Yeah,
jokes? I don't think nobody does, but
it's on
anyway.
par. It's on par.
It's good to see you, brother. It's good to see you're in a little bit of a different environment. This looks to me to be like one of your offices at headquarters.
It is. It is. Look, though, I'm fully branded up here.
I like it.
I am. I'm in the office this week. I don't know when this episode will air exactly, but we did have a little weather come through North Texas this past week, and we incurred a little bit of damage at the house. Had some windows blown out.
Lost a
Lots,
satellite dish.
lots of hell. Lots of hell.
Biggest thing is
Um,
the satellite dish, though. That's your
Good.
lifeblood, your internet. And I tell you, you tried to
I did everything I
hotspot.
could. We made a mockery of this week. I think doing the best we can, but we're safe. Thankfully, no issues there. We're working through it, so it is what it is. But I'm in the office this week, so. But Jimmy, I'll tell you some of the coolest parts, and I don't recommend anybody being in this situation, but uh, you reached out to me. I mean, so many people reached out to me this week just to check on me, see if I need anything, whether it was work or not. Um, just it it said so much about our culture at
Yeah.
Energy WorldNet, and I know that's what this series is about. And honestly, Jimmy, it's what my role's about now at Energy WorldNet.
Well, it is. You had a role change recently, and you're now our chief cultural officer, which is such an important role and purpose that you have right now.
It's a lot of responsibility. I will say that was something that we don't take very very lightly. I'm sure some people out there scratching their head a little bit, going, "Is that a real title? Did y'all make that up?"
It's a
We
real
did.
title. Yeah.
We made it up. It's real now. No, but people ask me like, "What? So what does that even mean?" And really, the best way to kind of bring it to life for some people is really that um, we've realized how important our culture is, our people are, um, and we we want to make sure it has a seat at the table, if you will, at a
Sure.
corporate level, so that it impacts every decision that we make. It's not the back burner thing that we check it against later. It's an active part of the decisions we make. Culture is driven at a corporate level,
Definitely.
and that's a lot of influence and a lot of impact. And so we kind of got here by taking our lumps and like everybody else and really working through it. But what I'm hoping is this series, kind of the why behind this series, is what can we give people some action that they can take to start getting this thing moving, And I think we can do that. We've had some awesome guests on that I can't wait to have back, and some new ones that we've never had on to really bring life to some of these points. Um, I've been speaking on this topic, kickstarting a culture, which
Yep.
teaser alert. That's
Yeah.
that's what our series is going to be called. And I speak on these points out in public, but what we would like to do is really bring some folks in to bring those to life, and not just be, the echo chamber that is Jim and James.
Yeah, and I think, James, let me just give a thought here that, we've been in the pandemic for 2 years now, and I think the pandemic has got actually opened up a lot of thought and awareness in our workplace. And I remember a time when somebody would say, you have an issue at home, hey, leave it at the door at 8 a.m. You can pick it back up at 5 o'clock, but while you're here, clear your mind, just be, work focused. that was a reality, and I'm not joking. 10 years ago, I may have said that to people, and now when I think about it, that is so anti where we are now because we want the best for people all the way through.
Absolutely. And it's weird. I bet for a lot of people and a lot of organizations out there that the pandemic was the catalyst to the culture discussion, right? Here's the good news, bad news, everyone. You your culture is being made right now, whether you're an active part or not. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
so you can get involved and affect positive change within that culture, or you cannot, and it will be shaped either way, either by your action or inaction. Okay. So I'm all for the pandemic being a catalyst for some organizations. Some people needed their hands forced.
Yeah.
I will say that we were blessed at Energy WorldNet to have started on this culture journey for a while now.
Yeah.
And I won't say that the pandemic wasn't a catalyst for us as well, because in a way it was. But if we hadn't started that journey 2, 3 years before and really got involved, I can't imagine what the pandemic would have been like and what it would be like, right? I mean, we're not out of it. We're coming up, to 2 years of it, right? And the groundwork that we had laid going into it, I think really drove home how important it was where we stand now. When we look back at it, that is what made us so successful during this pandemic. Yeah, we were flexible. Yeah, we had things in place. But if our culture wasn't supported, I bet there were cultures out there that absolutely imploded
Yes.
because they were built on old data and lagging indicators, and they weren't an active part of their own cultures. And after it blew up, they had to get to work. And if I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you. I'm not calling anybody out. Either way, again,
Right.
your culture is being shifted, right? And shaped. And so if that's what it took to get involved, amen to that. But for us personally, we were on that journey.
We
Um, and
were.
s- and it almost created more of a bonding experience for us because we became more vulnerable. Don't get me wrong, Energy WorldNet did. And I would say a lot of us did.
Yeah.
Society. We talked about mental health this past 2 years more than I've ever seen anything talked about.
Open.
Um, and
Openly.
that's a big, again, I'll take that catalyst all day long if that's what it means we're going to begin that conversation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm happy to hear culture permeate our industry, other industries, just be a natural conversation. I'll tell you internally, myself, that was a big turning point for me is when it would come up in conversation and it wasn't me talking, you know,
Right.
like it, for a long time, and we'll talk about that later when we talk about kind of putting this thing into action. For a long time, I was the person saying culture, or I was the person beating the drum, or I was the one doing the thing, the culture widget, you know, whatever that is. I was the one making it, and I was the one living it out, and I was trying to implement it. But when that dialogue shifted, and I heard it out of other people's mouths more than my own, and I kind of got to step back a little bit and go,
Yeah.
now we're talking. All right, the pandemic really pushed us in that direction.
Well, and look at everything in the marketplace. Some of the key indicators. 2.5, 3 years ago, when we went to conferences and sat in on sessions, we were talking about hardware, regulators, valves, infrastructure, integrity. You didn't hear a lot of, subjects on mental health. You didn't hear subjects on culture, positive culture in the workplace. You didn't hear a lot of those. And now they're like, you, James, have been sought out by at least two or three, four organizations to give your presentation on that because of that. And I think so many people are seeing it. And I think the other thing I wanted to mention it almost goes back to our Steve Allen PSMS type of thing, where Steve says all the time, getting started on a PSMS journey is easy because you're already doing a lot of things you may not be aware of it. It's just
Mm.
like taking those pieces and putting them together. And I view the culture the same thing. We got all the backbone and got all the pieces. It's just being now more proactive and brave to
Mhm.
say, this is great, this is great, this is great, and they come together. Am I
It's
right on that?
well, it goes back to what I was saying. It's just getting involved, right? I mean, again, you can shape your culture by the amount of activity or lack thereof, right?
Right.
So, if you're having troubles within your groups, your organization, your leadership, whatever that subgroup is, I promise you, step back. It's probably rampant everywhere else. So, are you really involved in that portion? I mean, or are you kind of letting it work? Oh, it works itself out. That's just, I mean, yeah, it does. Doesn't always mean good, right? So, being an active part is huge. You know, and that's what I hope these points will lead us to. Like breaking them down this way has helped me too because I can go back. Everybody wants to know how we're going to get there. What's the cheat code? What's the bad news? There's not one. Okay.
But there's a roadmap, though, right?
There is. We
There's
can send you down the
milestones,
path,
guidelines.
but it just like safety culture, it's a journey, not a destination, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it's continuous improvement. It's
it
checking
never
in. It's
ends.
having really rough conversations all the time, and you know, but again, actively curating that culture is the difference maker. You can lay back and you can say, "Oh, that's for big organizations or whatever," but at the end of the day your inaction will say as much as your action does. So it's really finicky. And again, just I'll go back to what I said before about my position in particular. Having that thought process at a corporate level, corporately funded, an active participant in all departments because it's corporate. That's our commitment to culture. Okay. It's not something we take lightly. We're going to work.
Yep. No, I herald that thought, and I just gets back to my mind. I keep going between the proactive and reactive, a dormant or proactive. And one of the steps I'm thinking about, and we talk about this a lot of the subjects that we talk on are very applicable in the workplace, but a lot of people could start in their homes
Mm.
and understand this at a grassroots level, what it is, because some people might not be that comfortable talking about it. It's an area that is, you know, it's if we're going to talk about something in the industry, integrity for pipelines, oh well, let's talk about it all day, but we're talking about a soft skill or a culture, people might, can I talk about that? Is
Well,
that
and I'll strip that down a little bit further, Jimmy. Is culture is an HR activity. Okay.
okay?
And
That can scare
and and
people, that can scare people.
absolutely right. And that's why I'm kind of saying it is um that some of our culture is really stripping that back and going, HR is not the bad guy. We are not the fun police. We are not out to get you. We work for you. And some of that misconception out there, is really some of we have to work on. But you're right. In our industry, that's your first thought is, well, you want us sitting around on bean bags and, you know, with a froyo bar, like, I don't know, like, what does that even mean? And all we're really saying is we're, we're going to build something awesome that people want to go to, do business with, that invites a ton of talent
Yeah.
because we're going to balance it. We're going to take everything into account. We're going to make it inclusive. We're going to embrace diversity. Whatever thing, um, we're gonna be a part of that discussion with our people and put it out there and go to work. And
Yeah. And James, a full disclosure, you are a left brain and a right brain type of person. You head up over the brand division, right? But you also head up over the HR. And when I first heard, you and I are friends, so I know you, I'm like, James is over HR, and then you and I talked about it. And the passion that you have is the onboarding, the growing within the company, all the experiences and all those things. I guess I'm sharing my thoughts with you, and those are the things that you believe in. And it took being very brave for you to say, I want HR because I want to bring all those good things into it. And it's a
Uh,
perfect place for it.
Jimmy, I'll go back to something that I said right, like as I started this journey myself towards the position I'm in now, is I didn't even know where I was headed. Like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
knew kind of what it felt like and where I wanted to go, but when I was charged with really curating our brand, as VP of brand, my struggle was that if I was going to maintain the image and the brand of this company, then I needed to understand how people were onboarded and offboarded within our company.
Sure.
Because our biggest champions live within our walls, right? And if people are coming on and I don't know what they're saying or how they're acting, and secondly, if people are leaving and I don't know why, how we can fix it, that's a gap, right?
Yeah.
And so then it developed into a bigger discussion because really my passion ended up being more so of people. Um,
It
that's
is.
what I realized, and connecting folks and making that magic happen. And so when I leaned in there, then it kind of started to gather a name, and that name was culture. Mm.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And just an example, I mean, I think back to the past, I can't tell you how many times over the last 20 years or 30 years where, you join an organization and somebody says, well, welcome to the circus, and they're not saying that meanly, but they're like, it's great, and you're like, okay, so the next person comes on board and I would say, hey, welcome to the circus, as opposed to, think about, welcome to
Mm.
something, circus can give a little bit of a different connotation, correct?
Yeah, it's some of that tone conversation. Jimmy, why don't we do that? Why don't we walk through these points for
We're
everybody?
gonna lay
That'll
out,
end up be the episodes because I think
okay,
that'll bring this thing to life. Is let's walk through these, and this is stolen straight from my presentation, Jimmy. Like
which you're giving twice.
Kickstarter culture, yeah, I'll be doing it twice. I think here in the next month, and then we're on a couple more agendas as well. I'm
You
happy
want
to.
me to do it more if more people on the,
I
so if
know a
anybody,
guy. Jimmy knows a guy.
I know a guy, so hit me up
Yeah.
if you're interested in that.
So
What's
all of
number
my
one, James?
yeah, all of my presentations always end with like walking away with action, right? Like, okay,
Yep.
this is great in theory, but I want to go home and put it into play, right? So that's
Yep.
kind of what we're thinking about this series is giving you something to take home. Think Seven Habits when we did that one. We're
Yep.
going to focus on one topic and get moving. So here we go.
Okay.
Number one, Jimmy, is first off, you just got to get started. I feel like a broken record on this because I use it almost all of mine. Is nothing gets done without getting started, and we get locked in. A lot of us, especially big thinkers, creatives, um, arrangers. If you're a strength finder person, we can get lost in the planning. We got to think of every scenario. Devil's advocate, those types of folks. We get, I mean, just inundated and paralyzed
Yes.
by inaction, right? Like we just,
We've all
well, we
seen it.
gotta we gotta make it perfect, and honestly, it's overrated. Unless it's heart surgery, um, done is better, than nothing. Uh, you know what I mean? Like it's really let's get moving because you know what's going to happen, Jimmy? Uh, they'll tell you, whoever your audience is, whoever you're delivering this product to, this culture to, guess what? They'll
They're gonna
tell
have
you.
feedback.
They'll give you feedback. That's what people do.
Yeah.
Uh, now, you may, at the beginning, you may have to go out and beg for it because your culture doesn't support it. But the reality is, if you don't get started, people aren't, they could give you ideas all day long and you get stymied
Yeah.
stymied by it, right? So this allows us to get moving. So get out there, get moving. Best
Number
time,
one,
what do they say the best time to plant a tree is?
yesterday.
20 years ago and today, right? I mean, uh, so let's get started. Number two, there are going to be a lot of tough discussions. in
Why?
curating this culture because in order to know where you're headed, you got to know where you're at. And for us, we started with something I call it stay interviews. I think that's a normal term.
Yep.
This is, but really, we started with that, like that, to almost audit ourselves and create a baseline. Let's look across the entire organization and find our gaps and our weaknesses, and let's not wait until people walk out the door to do an exit interview. Let's do it while they're here, and that creates an amazing baseline.
Okay.
And in the right, like it says a lot when you can come back and fix people's everyday problems, and really that's what it turned out. That's the wild part, Jimmy, is we did stay interviews after stay interview, and the biggest thing for some people might have been not having a subscription that they needed. In their world, that was what
Huge.
kept them up at night. It slowed them down, and they wanted to be a high performer like they were. And you know and it was a 5-minute fix, and it changed their world.
Yeah.
And we acted, but it doesn't matter what the result is. It's if you're going to go out and ask the questions, you better be ready to act. As if you're going to go ask the questions and go, that's not really the answer I wanted,
Too bad.
people are going
Right.
to quit answering, right?
Right.
So number two is preparing yourself for those brutal facts types of conversations, because you're going to have them, and you're going to have them, and you're going to have to get comfortable. Brene Brown says it's only awkward for about 8 seconds.
Okay.
Getting through that 8 seconds so that you can really get down to what needs to be worked on. You're going to have a
Okay.
lot of those conversations. Um, this one kind of goes hand in hand, but number three is being real and vulnerable, present in the moment, processing it. You mentioned it about the pandemic. We thought we had it all figured out. And we had to figure it all out again, because you're right. Like forever, we'd said, check it at the door, buddy. You need to leave that at the baggage claim over there
Yeah.
by HR. Pick it up on your way out. That wasn't an option. And so we had to have some tough conversations again, brutal conversations about just mental health and leadership going, I think I'm burnt out because I don't ever go to an office, and I work, and then I don't really have a turn off time, and I work some more. Like those types of things that got us through some moments.
Definitely.
I know it did me.
But it's hard though. It's hard to be vulnerable like that. It takes a lot of trust and respect of everybody that you're with to do that.
I remember a moment, and I know nobody would care if I mentioned it, but I'll keep it, vague. But we had an employee that had a little one at home, and she, right at the beginning of the pandemic, everything was bananas. Everybody was buying and everything, and formula was one of those things. I don't know if
Oh
you
yeah,
remember it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
we she just posted on water cooler and was like, I'm kind of scared, about formula. And our people went to work, man. We have people all over. I mean, I'll head to Walmart now. Like everyone just activated. And I sat back and I was like,
That's culture,
that's
right?
real.
Yeah.
Right. And that was huge, huge moments like that. So finding, creating a culture where you can be real and vulnerable, that's huge. That's
Yep.
brave, right?
Yeah. It is being brave.
Jimmy, you mentioned one earlier about, welcome to the circus, buddy. You know, like that negative kind of um, dialogue that we use sometimes, self-deprecating.
Yep.
Like we know we're a good company. Look, we're successful. We're doing good things. We're hiring a bunch of people. We've got a lot of clients. But the, to just soften the blow sometimes where we don't maybe knock it out of the park, we kind of joke about, well, it's the EWN way or something. You know what I mean? Whatever
Yeah.
your organization is. Um, again, that's words are seeds,
They are. They're very
and they
powerful.
add up, you know, and over time we joke about it, like you hear that and then it becomes your joke, and the other two people that were training next to you. And then when you're training the next batch of 10 that came in, welcome to the circus, buddy. Um, it's such an easy change, you know, changing words like agnostic into inclusive, you know, and
Yeah,
things like that. There's nothing wrong. It's just creating a more positive vibe. Words are seeds. Words are seeds. That's what
yeah.
I just tell myself. Words are seeds. Um, so changing your tone really is that one. So we'll bring somebody on. We'll talk about that. Number 5 is my favorite. And
Number five.
if I was going to tell you something right now that changed your life, this is the one, man. Um, Starting where you have influence.
Talk about that a little bit more. That's an important one too, isn't
I
it?
think so too, and for multiple reasons, which we'll talk about in the last one, is where you have the most influence. A lot of the time starts with you, right? So we can be the example. We can get out there. We can do the actions we're asking of others to do. We can, you know, lead. We can hold the door. Those things, right?
Walk the talk. I mean, actually lead.
Absolutely. If you go back to
And
SMS type stuff, that's
yeah,
safety culture.
definitely, definitely.
Absolutely. But starting where we have influence may be at home. It may be with your direct supervisor. It may be it's not being reckless and thinking or being gullible enough to think that you can invent this culture and walk in and set it on the CEO or owner's desk and say, this is where we need to go. That instead, where you sit really depends on where you go to work first, right? I mean, and some of it may be grassroots that you're not really getting paid for a couple of years. It may be a gap that you see right now that you can fix with one of your people that report to you, or it could be as simple as um, sitting down and listening across a department line and fixing a gap. But knowing where you have influence, and it's different for everyone, right? I mean,
Yeah, and let me just ask you a question though. You know, in depending on the size of the organization, we're all over the board with the organizational size. This could literally be two people sitting down over a lunch break saying, "Hey, you want to start a culture committee? You know, what's
I
involved
mean,
in it?"
really,
Or it could be
really.
a whole corporate initiative, right? I mean, it's all over the,
Now,
and
look,
it's not a right or a wrong.
I mean, organizations out there have HR. They've, you know, they've,
Yeah,
again, you have a culture. That's that's the good news, bad news. Uh, so if you're not, and there's not a real active culture within your group, then again, you have to start where you have influence. If you go in and start saying our culture sucks here, we got to work on it, probably not going to get very far,
yeah,
right?
right.
Uh, if you go to HR and say, I want to be an active champion for culture around here, how can I get involved? I bet somebody's going to have five you to death, you know, like that. That's what I mean
Yeah,
is it's different for every person. You
yeah,
may be wanting to kickstart your culture in a small group at church, you know. You may want to be kickstarting your culture with a sports team that you play on.
yeah,
Like I can't tell you what it is, but I will say that there's a seat at the table. There's
yeah.
somebody that's doing it and they're on the hook for it and they would love some help.
Wonderful.
And then the last one, Jimmy, goes hand in hand with this one, and that's really be the example and hold the door
Yeah,
because you combo a few of the ones we talked about before, the first five, you're going to get a little momentum. You're going to get some people, you know, their ears perk up a little bit, and they're like, "What's going on here?" And when you get a few people, I always use a. We'll play it in one of these. Remember the TED talk about the importance of the first follower, right? There's gold in that, and rallying those people and getting them united and beginning really a movement starts with you being the movement. Um, until you get that first follower, that first person that goes, I see what you're doing here. How can I help? Because that is invaluable. You can't be out there talking about it and not walking it. So again, be the example and hold the door because they're coming. And it may
James,
take months, it may take a year, but
well, there's no destination
it's
though.
a
It's just
long
very,
game. I'm telling you, it's
yeah,
the longest game, and the work you do now is the fruits you may see 18 months from now. And it's hard, and it's dirty, and it's brutal facts, and that's that's the goal of this series,
I
Jimmy.
love it. It's wonderful, James. And I'll say this by everybody that's watching this today probably is on their journey to the first step of getting started because they're engaged and they're watching this. And if they leave here today and go back and say to themselves, how can we do this? Or say to the HR group or say to another coworker, that's getting started, right?
Yeah,
Um, I think, and that's a good feeling to have one under your belt, like you're on the right path.
yeah.
So James,
I'm gonna,
anything you want to follow up with here before I think it's nice that we're going to do a whole series. We got 6 episodes. We're going to have some exciting guests come on and join us from throughout the industry. I do know a
mhm,
little bit of prelim of that, which
yep.
will be exciting.
Yeah, I just encourage people to listen into this one. It's a hot topic out there. Some people would say it's trendy.
Sure.
I would say you're not wrong because we are talking about it. It is trending. I would not say it's trendy.
Right.
I think culture. I think the first book in this presentation, it goes back to work culture, goes back to factory culture in 1951. You know, like this is not new stuff. We are just talking about the importance more than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's core fundamentals. Again, it's happening. That's the scary thing. Remember, pay attention, watch a series because if you're not actively involved, it's still happening.
Right.
So
You
if you
can, you
needed a
can,
reason to tune in, your culture is happening right now while you watch and listen to this, right? That's mind blowing.
yeah. You can either be part of it or you can sit back and watch it go on the path.
However it goes, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So tune in. I love it. This is one of those selfish series for me, Jimmy.
I love
I
it. You
can't
do some good
wait.
stuff.
I'm super pumped. I want to record them all. I could have done this for an hour and a half. But I
I
will
don't think
say
it's an
this.
hour and a half. You could have gone a week and a
I
half.
don't know. I've been going 5.5 years on it.
Yeah.
I will say this though. Tune in, obviously, but if you like this topic, this energy, this discussion, I do this topic as a speaking engagement. So I'd love to talk to you. Let's get it on the agendas. Yeah.
And James, I will say the passion that you have when you deliver that presentation is dynamic and energetic. So, yeah, a
That's
shame
coming
that,
from Jim Shower.
well, that's saying something, isn't it? So, James, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I think this is a great roadmap. I'm excited for the
Kick
series.
Kickstart Your Culture.
Kickstart Your Culture. And with that, we will see you next time on Coffee with Jim and James. And everybody stay safe. Have a great day.